is One Man Left, and we've been through 2 days of the Path of Exile 2 Beta Early Access, and today I'm going to make a video that is going to be heavily downvoted and be very unpopular because people are still kind of in the honeymoon phase, but the way I function on things is if you say, hey, here's 9 things that are correct and here's 1 thing that's wrong, I'm not going to talk about the 9 things that are correct. I'm going to talk about the 1 thing that's wrong. So I'm going to talk about 3 things right now that I just think are in a really bad spot for early access. Frankly, they're not things I would have guessed would have been wrong. If you made me make a bingo card, I would not have put these on my bingo card. But the only explanation I have as to why they're this wrong is their playtesting they've done so far has only been with people that, you know, are largely positive, because if you get, you know, exclusive access to play a test product, it's a good thing. You know, you can make YouTube videos about it, and naturally you want to be positive. So if people play test the game for 6 hours and they ask, hey, how was it? It really doesn't matter how bad it was. They'll still say it was good because they want to be invited back for more YouTube content. That's how these things generally work. So I think that's the only explanation that makes sense to me for how some of these things made it into the release of early access. But thankfully, it's still early in the game. It's been out for 2 days in early access. It's still in beta, and there's a lot of time and opportunity to change things. I expect to play this game for 10,000 plus hours. So I'm not too upset if there's things wrong after 25. But I think it's still worth talking about and just skipping the honeymoon phase and just talking about some things that are wrong. All right. First thing that I think is currently wrong with early access. It's going to be a controversial take, but the bosses are too easy. And this plays into point 2 that we'll get to in a second. But I think the Act 1 bosses are fine. But about midway through Act 1, I just started like face tanking and one-shotting stuff. I'm playing Warrior. And the final boss of Act 1 was really well tuned, and it was hard again. So Draven and the Count were, I think, good tuning based off my time fighting them. After that, basically every single boss through Acts 2, 3, and 4, I have done 0 mechanics. I've just stood perfectly still. I have just face tanked everything, and I've just hit the boss like 10 times and killed it. And before you'd be like, oh, you're over leveling, you're over geared, you're this is not. I'm just gonna, just to add context to this, I'm same zone level, right? So I've now progressed to level 47 zones, and I just hit 47 in that zone. So I actually started under-leveled in the Red Veil. So I started at 46 and 47. I've roughly been same level as zone for most of the campaign. Okay? Now you might think, oh, you've got a really OP weapon. Nope, I am using a level 11 weapon. I've put 13 quality on it and 1 socket out of 2. It has a single fizz roll, 1 fizz roll, so that's good. But this dropped off the count halfway through Act 1. And I've just been doing level 47 content with a level 11 weapon. So I don't think I'm particularly overgeared. I think the next weapon upgrade I get will be like 2.5 times its damage. But I just personally think none of the bosses so far have been like memorable or engaging. I haven't really done mechanics, and they've died very fast. Now, this could obviously be an opinion. There's kind of 2 crowds on this. Do you want the game to be hard, or do you want the game to be easy? In this case, I tend to be more on the hard side. I like things that are challenging. That's fun. But this in particular is going to segue into the next point. Because what's hard in the game right now is really backwards in my opinion. Because the trash is significantly harder than the bosses. Significantly. Like, my deaths are probably 95% trash and 5% bosses. Like, you know, if you're someone who's going to dislike the video blindly, I would encourage you, leave a comment saying which points you disagree with before you hit dislike. Then you can, that's fine. But to me, this one seems odd. I don't think this is like an opinion thing on like, oh, do you want the game to be hard or easy? I think this is fairly universal. Like, shouldn't the trash be the easy part? I mean, like, not easy, easy. You know, you should maybe still have to work around it, right? But it just feels weird to me that I am terrified of trash in this game. I will go into any unique boss blind and just like not even sweat at all. I'll just go in with like all my life flasks empty, whatever, it doesn't matter. Rares are kind of the same way. Rares generally die in 1 to 2 hits and they don't do that much dangerous stuff. So rares are definitely too easy as well. Maybe that's a PoE 1 mind thing where rares are the hardest thing in the game and therefore we expect them to be. But rares are not hard in PoE 2. White and magic monsters, though, are terrifying. Some of the things that contribute to this is the fact that zones reset if you die. So if you have a gigantic zone that's like 20 minutes, like if you clear all the way to the end of the zone through all that trash and then you die, the whole zone respawns. So it's actually become a point where I've just started on a lot of these big zones just skipping all the trash. I just roll past it if I can. Because it doesn't drop any loot, so why kill it? I don't need XP to level up and kill the boss because the bosses are easy. So I just don't kill trash and just kill the boss. Like, that doesn't feel like good gameplay. You know, if I think Jonathan said he wanted people to die 10 times on bosses, on each boss. That, to me, feels like what more people are in line with thinking, where you have a game where bosses are challenging, you fight it several times, you fail, you learn, you progress, maybe you tweak something with your character to improve it for that fight, and then you come out ahead and you beat the boss on like a close nail biter, right? That really hasn't been the case for most of these fights. The only fights that have even like really looked like they were kind of hard were ones that had like immunity phases. Like, just phases where they straight up just go immune to damage. Let me get a clip here for a next clip, by the way. But, you know, I started to think, okay, is this like an isolated opinion of mine? And then I thought, well, let's consult some people who, you know, maybe are much better at the game than I am, right? Last night, I decided, let's just see how Karn's doing. Let's see if Karn has some similar thinking. If you don't know, Karn is one of the best players in Path of Exile. So if you're just thinking like, it's because he's bad. Alright. Ben, if you're watching this, I'm not talking to you, okay? Everyone else, if you're watching this video right now, you are worse than Karn at Path of Exile, okay? Nick and Jung, maybe. Well, I'll maybe give you it, but I asked Karn, how's the experience been? Well, the first thing he said to me was, oh yeah, bosses, you just fucking one-shot, and trash is terrible. Same exact experience. Same exact experience. So maybe it's warrior only, and maybe that's a suggestion that the tuning between the classes is way off between bosses and trash. But at least within the melee experience, someone who's probably the best melee player in Path of Exile has the exact same experience as I do. So I don't think this is like some really isolated, I'm in my own bubble opinion. But it just feels really, really off on balance between bosses being too easy and trash being too hard. Maybe this comes back to changing the zones respawning. Maybe it has to do with like dodge roll not giving you phasing and you get surrounded. Maybe it's that stun feels a lot worse than PoE 1. I don't really get stunned on bosses at all, but it seems like on trash I get stunned all the time. So I don't know. To me, this does not feel like a spectrum thing of like, do you want the game to be hard or do you want the game to be easy? Which camp do you fall in? I would imagine that both camps can agree that the bosses should be the harder part, not the trash. That to me seems wild. I don't think I've ever seen a game like that. Maybe the one exception is like Mythic Plus dungeons in WoW, where like MDI teams pull like 12 trash packs on top of the boss. Maybe in that context, the trash is the harder part, and that's what people enjoy. I don't know, but if you disagree with this and you think, no, Connor, I want easy bosses and hard trash, please just let me know. I don't know who has that opinion. Maybe I'm just out of touch. That brings us to the third and final point. The skills feel really, really bad. I'll give some examples of this. You know, naturally the game's slower, right? Same spectrum. Do you want the game to be fast or do you want the game to be slow? I think a lot of people from maybe other ARPGs, maybe like Dark Souls games, a lot of the new people coming in maybe favor slow. I tend to favor fast because to me that's more fun. So of the two camps, I like difficult but fast. That's my camp. Some people like easy but slow. Like there's four combinations there you could be. Some people like hard and slow, whatever. The skills feel extremely clunky. I really just think if they just had the PoE 1, Act 1 only skills in the game, my experience would have been night and day difference. Like, not even the OP skills. Don't think of Awaken Multi-Strike, Awaken Spell. Like, no. I'm talking like Molten Strike, Ground Slam, Sunder, even Heavy Strike, even Glacial Hammer. Like, just the Act 1 melee skills. Cyclone just feel better than the best Path of Exile 2 skill. I don't even think it's something to do with the speed of the attack animations. It's just clunk. The first skill I played that I had a really good experience with at first was Molten Blast. Molten Blast, let's see if I can show you. Let me see if I can find it here. Is this? Oh, that's a support. Hang on. Let's get a Molten Blast here. Somewhere. Okay, there it is. Let's make a Molten Blast. All right. So let me just show you this skill. I was like, you know, early on-ish in the campaign. I had a really bad experience with Rolling Slam, so I said, let's try Molten Blast. And I used this skill, and you just lob this underhand thing that it's just like a slow-pitch softball throw that then explodes into like 10 projectiles, and it feels really good. The problem is, I encountered after about 5 minutes of using it, you have to do the movement animation. Like, between Rolling Slam and Magma Blast, you cannot stay still. You have to move forward. So, like, I was doing the count fight, and, like, he, you know, like, sets up the whole room with all the little spikes you gotta dodge. I ran to the corner. I'm like, I can't attack the boss. I literally just have to stand here. Because if I use my main skill, I will move forward into the spike and get hit. It's even worse when you're fighting a boss that you're just, like, nose to nose with and just, like, going full melee. Because you just keep trying to move and keep trying to move. It's really, really annoying to control your character. There is no option to stay in place. When you're, like, stuck on a rock, you can. Like, if this was the skill and I could just use this and there was an option to stay in place, this would feel really good. But the baked-in movement that you can't get around just feels really bad. Honestly, the worst offender by far is Leap Slam. Leap Slam is so bad. All they had to do was take Path of Exile 1 Leap Slam. I'm not even talking the speed, I'm just talking the targeting. And just make that the PoE 2 Leap Slam. There's a key difference here between the two, besides the attack speed. You know what it is? In Path of Exile 1, Leap Slam targets your cursor. If I put my cursor here, and I Leap Slam, I will land where my cursor was, right? Well, you're thinking, oh, isn't that what you just did? Isn't that how Leap Slam works in Path of Exile 2? No. I found out, unfortunately, really early on, that's not how Leap Slam works in Path of Exile 2. It will just randomly target a random monster. So if there's a pack of monsters here, and I have my cursor over here, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to backpedal, I'm going to run away. It will just turn around 180 degrees, my cursor's here, and just leap this way in the middle of the monsters. It just feels terrible. It's so clunky. You'll be fighting a boss, and, like, you'll try to, like, you know, leap out of an animation, and it will just turn around and leap to the middle of the boss's hitbox instead. I'll give you an example of this, okay? A lot of people saw this clip, and I think misunderstood the clip completely. But, I'll hide this. What happened here... Remember, the bosses are really easy in this game. At least right now. My experience was... Basically, by this point in the game, every boss is tank and spank. You just stand still, don't move, don't play mechanics... and then you just kill the boss in 10 hits. That's been every boss up until this point. This is, however, the Sanctum run for Labyrinth to get your Ascendancy point, where I can't just tank and spank. You know, I think this is a little bit bad overall, because I am building some defense on my character, as you should in a Path of Exile game, as you should in an ARPG. Maybe that's why I'm able to tank every boss mechanic and not dodge anything, because I have, like, 12 points of defense on my tree. But... regardless, I don't generally have to do boss mechanics at all. Glass cannon builds might be having the opposite experience. They might be dying a lot on bosses because they're just all offense. Those builds in particular do actually really well in Sanctum, because monsters in Sanctum don't deal damage. They deal damage to your honor, which is this bar right here. So if you have a tanky character, this was the problem in Sanctum and PoE 1. If you have a tanky character, your defenses don't matter. It only matters your honor, the number of times you get hit. So, like, this is way, way better for a glass cannon character. But regardless, I had been playing with Leap Slam all day at this point, and I had been just getting increasingly frustrated with Leap Slam targeting 180 degrees from where my cursor is and leaping backwards. And, like, watch what happens in this clip. I know a lot of you guys have seen this clip, but, alright. First Leap Slam, I target the boss, and it leaps to the boss. Naturally, right? But, remember, the boss can't kill me. Bosses are easy. But it can deplete my honor. So I know that when he does his big slam coming up, I have to dodge it. The slam is bigger than the width of a dodge roll. But Leap Slam leaps about 2 times as far as a dodge roll. So my plan that had worked somewhat up until this point was to leap out of the slam. Not do 2 dodge rolls. If you watch what happens next... look where my cursor is, okay? He's about to do the slam. Look where my cursor is, and look where the Leap Slam goes. It's at the literal bottom of the screen, right? My character's facing this way. Here's the slam winding up. There is my cursor. Watch what my character does. It goes to the literal center of the boss's hitbox. If this was PoE 1 Leap Slam, my character would have leaped away, and I would have dodged the slam. And the unfortunate thing is it's really inconsistent, because it does work that way about 60% of the time. So if it just never worked, if I just knew for a fact it always went to the boss's hitbox, this wouldn't be that bad, because then I just would never use it ever again. But, like, it just works 2/3 of the time. So I kind of, it's just enough that I get used to using it. And then I'm just rolling dice every time, 1 out of 3, is it going to do this? So I had been playing with this frustration for like 5 hours at this point. And yeah, I lost the Sanctum to Ascend because my cursor's here. And remember, the slam doesn't do damage. The slam hit my character for 35%. Like, I cannot lose a fight with this boss. Bosses they don't do enough damage and they don't have enough HP. But in Sanctum specifically, that doesn't matter, because my honor reached 0. And even though my character's fine, the run's over. So, like, to me, this is just like an example of the skills are clunky, they're incredibly inconsistent, they don't feel good. It's not even the slowness, it's just, if this was PoE 1 Leap Slam, but it was the same exact speed as PoE 2 Leap Slam, but it just targeted your cursor, it would feel much better. But, like, this is not an isolated incident. Like, I had this experience with Rolling Slam. It just feels like every melee skill just has this random unnecessary clunk. And frankly, I'm not sure how they got to the early access without someone just playtesting this and being like, dang, this feels bad. And the only explanation I have is that every single person that played it was like, this was the best thing I've ever played. Please invite me back next week. I know that's normal in the gaming industry, right? Like, you know, if they did an Act 1 playtest with someone, and I'm just like, yeah, Leap Slam feels terrible, and the fourth zone took me 25 minutes to find the objective, because it doesn't show anything on the map, you know. They would probably just be like, well, you're a negative Nancy. Door's over there, right? Even if GGG didn't do that, that's kind of like the implication or the expectation with people, so... That's the norm in the gaming industry with access journalism. So I feel like they haven't actually got any valuable feedback. I think another point to support this too is the fact that the Act 1 bosses feel fine, but then the Act 2 onward bosses feel way too easy. And the reason I think that is because they don't actually have any valuable feedback from players on their first playthrough. Their only feedback is internal testing with people that have played the campaign many times. So my assumption is that the difficulty feels consistent because those testers they have that have played the campaign several times, they roughly know what they're doing in Act 1, and then they also roughly know what they're doing in Acts 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the way they have the game tuned is it's consistent difficulty there. Whereas the truth is it's just on the easy side. But players on their first playthrough in Act 1 have no clue what they're doing. They have no skills. They have no idea what skills are good. They don't know what to use. They're still getting used to the controls. They're getting used to the speed of the game. So they are just like an absolute toddler playing the game. And because of that, Draven and the Count feel like a balanced fight because you have no clue what you're doing. But by Acts 2 onward, you kind of know what you're doing. You kind of know what skills are good. And then the game's like stupid easy mode. And I think the playtesters within GGG already have the knowledge in Act 1, therefore it feels consistent. So I won't ramble too long, but I think these three things alone are like a massive setback for the game that I frankly don't think is like a strict one way or another opinion, like do you want the game hard or easy? Like I just think I would imagine both crowds would feel that bosses should be harder than trash monsters. I would feel like both crowds would want the skills to feel smooth. Doesn't have to be fast, just has to like not have a clunky targeting UI, you know? But like I said, this video is gonna get a lot of downvotes. Everyone's in the honeymoon phase. That's not the way my brain works. I'm an engineer by profession, so I only focus on the things that are wrong. But I'm hoping to skip the honeymoon phase and hopefully start improving the game so I can play this game for 10,000 hours. I'll see you guys next time.